The keystone here is sleep. For all three of us, we're really bad at sleeping.
Yeah, we are.
Whenever you are in a rut, what are the ways that you've gotten out of it?
I couldn't. I've been in a rut for multiple months.
It's almost coming back to our roots. It's this accountability and supporting
Yeah.
each other and cheering each other on to our best selves.
Welcome, fellow humans, to the Milliseconds Apart podcast, a podcast of three friends that are frankly a hot mess, who don't really know all that much, but decide to banter on along. I don't think I use banter in the right way. Izzy's hanging loose. We're having some banter. We're having some fun. Here we are. Welcome. We're glad to have you here. We're glad to have you here, besties. The reason I said besties is a joke from the last episode, so if you haven't listened to the last episode, go ahead and do that now. So my name is Matt. I actually think that jeans are a bit overrated.
My name's Izzy. I'm a final year medical student at Cambridge.
My name's Zuri, and I'm also a medical student and also a YouTuber.
Today, we are going to talk about being in a rut, getting out of a rut, even the more human side of putting things online. So the reason behind this is I kind of been in this rut, like for the last maybe couple weeks, and it's because certain habits have gotten out of place, and so then it's been playing catch up. So I wanted to talk to both of you about times where maybe you've gotten into a rut. How did you get into it? What were the things that caused that? How did you end up getting out of it later on? And then we can also talk about the things that we don't necessarily share on the internet. So let's talk about first, whenever we get into ruts. So what causes you all to feel down, or what causes you all to get into those periods where you're really not necessarily feeling your best self? What are things that happen for both of you?
So for me, it always happens almost in the same way when I get into a rut. And that's usually something disturbs my sleep schedule. It always starts from there. And then something will make me stay up late into the night. Then I'll decide, I'm going to sleep in to catch up on sleep. Otherwise, I'll be really tired and feel awful. And I sleep in. And then begins the rut, where I then, in order to feel like I've had a productive day the next day, I stay up late to get more work done or get more stuff done up to like 2 a.m., maybe 3 a.m. And then again, I'll sleep in the next morning because I'm like, otherwise I'll feel awful if I don't sleep in. And then it continues. And the reason why I feel like it's a rut, because I feel like, sure, some people who are night owls naturally, that might just be their schedule. They just might love doing that. That might be when they're most creative, most alive, most engaged. But for me, it's not. I feel like when I sleep late, I just feel worse overall. Even though I've got the same hours of sleep, I don't feel as on it or as sparky as usual. And so I think it's one of those things where it is a problem, and that's why it's a problem. But it's just this vicious cycle that goes on. And this has happened a lot through med school. This often, if there's like a night out, that will kick off a rut. And then I'll have to actively fix my sleep schedule and get back on it. How about you, Rory? What does a rut look like for you?
Actually, coming to your point, it really makes sense because it's kind of same to me. But in my case, yes, when I sleep a bit late, but most of the time, the reason that I go to bed a bit later is most of the time when I'm trying something new or something that is outside of my comfort zone. So let's say if it's a project or if it's an exam or if it's maybe a video that I never tried to film in a new style, I try to overthink. I start to overthink about it, and I start to procrastinate until 2 a.m. or something. And suddenly at 3 a.m. I start to do it, and then my whole sleep schedule is messed up. And I don't know what day is it. I don't know which day we're currently in. And I'm currently in that state, which is not good. So I think it's most of the time when I try something that is challenging, it kind of puts me in a rut. Yeah. What about you, Matt?
Yeah. It's interesting for both of you, right? You talk about the idea of sleep, because that's exactly what it is for me, where it just takes one, right? And then what both of you are talking about there, where whether it is you're trying to play catch up, and I think the thing that brings all this together, based on what both of you said and then what I was thinking in my head, is we're trying to do everything in one day. It feels as though it needs to happen today, and then we push it off, as opposed to, in a sense, cutting our losses. And I try to tell myself this, cut your losses, go to bed at 8. Did you get everything finished that you wanted to today? No, but also maybe the expectations were unrealistic to begin with. And then do better again the next day, right? And like essentially that thought of thinking about it in months and years as opposed to thinking about it in days and weeks, which is a lot easier said than done. But that to me is what I've been trying to get in this mindset, because every time that I get into a rut, it's because I'm with you as like, I'm not a night owl. Like I can stay up late, but then I'll just be unhappy the next day, because it's not necessarily about the quality of sleep. It's for me, it's like whenever I start feeling behind, it's that feeling of catch up where it feels as though you're being chased. It feels like there's this little anxiousness, which makes everything that we're doing more difficult, as opposed to whenever it's early, whenever there's the quiet. And I don't even think it's about distractions, right? I think some people talk about it's the distractions of other people. For me, I don't think it's necessarily that. It's just that feeling like, okay, now we have this urgency that's there to try to play catch up on our schedule, as opposed to being able to start earlier. But yeah, it's all sleep, right? It's just, that's the fundamental piece.
Yeah, and I found it really interesting, that thing you say about playing catch up, because then it almost puts you in almost a defensive position where you're almost like acting like prey, right? Like prey to your own schedule, and you're feeling out of control, versus when you feel like you're in control and you've got your schedule and you've got your routine, which you have actively chosen, then you don't feel that sense of being off balance and this playing catch up, which I completely agree with. I resonate with that so much. And to your point of just cutting your losses, this is something I have to like convince myself to do every single time, because often it's such a struggle, because I literally write this in my journal like every couple of months or so, just to remind me. And it's this, I don't know if it's a quote or if it's just a line that I heard somewhere, but it basically goes, sometimes the most productive thing you can do is go to sleep. And just to remind myself that, you know what, like right now I want to be productive. I want to finish off these things that I have on my to-do list. But actually right now, probably the most productive thing I can do is actually go to bed and get myself out of this rut. But it's so hard because I never listen to myself. Yeah. And then the next day I'm like, oh, why didn't I listen to myself? Yeah. And then the cycle continues.
Exactly. Yeah. I relate to it so much, because around like, let's say like 11 p.m., I want to finish this editing, and it will take me probably only like an hour or so, and I'll go to sleep at like 12 or so. I try to like say to myself, but then I start to think about it. Oh, I really do not want to do it. Let me check my phone. Let me talk to my friend, and voila, it's 1 a.m. Probably maybe I should have slept that point, and it would be much better for me. But I stay up at 1 a.m. and at 1 a.m. I tell myself, since it's currently 1 a.m. and since I haven't go to bed, let's finish this up. And it's 2 a.m. and I go to sleep, and it messes up my whole schedule. So I think one of the other like stuff that is these days making me get in a slump is, I don't know, waiting text from other people. I'm currently really alone in Rome, and I feel like I want some sort of connection from people. So I'm constantly checking my phone whether somebody texted me. And even during the night, yesterday, I woke up at 3 a.m. and checked my phone and went back to sleep, and woke up at 5 a.m. and then checked back it again. And it just messes up my whole sleep schedule. And my sleep schedule is really important when it comes to being more organized and more productive. But for a couple of months, I've been having an issue with it, and I don't know how to fix it.
Just your sleep in general there, where like getting that full night of sleep and getting it to be consistent.
Yeah,
is that
exactly.
what you're saying there, Rui?
And I just cannot convince myself to go to sleep. I always make excuses.
I'm exactly the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes even the excuse is like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, go.
Yeah, sometimes even the excuse that I make to myself is something along the lines of like, I can't be bothered to get ready for bed right now. I will muster up the energy to go and get ready and brush my teeth in like 10 minutes. I'll just check my phone for 10 more minutes. And then it just keeps going. And it's just, this is something I really need to fix. So I'd love to hear like both of you guys' thoughts on how I can fix this. Maybe how all three of us can like think of ways that we can get out of these ruts.
Well, maybe one idea is if we end up doing even a challenge where we just commit to ourselves, like, and we actually have our accountability there. And we can choose different times for ourselves, but because maybe for one person it's 10, for one person it's 9, one person it's 8, whatever it is, but committing to that. And because we all know, right, the power of sleep, right? And this is to me shows that it doesn't matter the information, or the information matters, but the information is not everything, right? It's actually the implementation of it that matters most, because we know how it affects every aspect of our lives. We're healthier in body and mind. We have more emotional intelligence. Like, we're able to deal with more stressful situations. We're more creative. Like, there's nothing that is better with less sleep than compared to the proper amount. But what is it? Like, and maybe it's important for us to ask the question, why? Like, why is it that we want to continue on? Is it this idea of we are thinking about how, like, we're thinking about how, yeah, one day we're going to die, so we're trying to do every single thing. So are we trying to do too much there? And then with that, like, that's why we keep pushing it off, because we say, okay, just a little bit more today, a little bit more today, a little bit more today, where we're looking so short term as opposed to looking the long term. Because if we get the proper 8-9 hours, 7 to 9 hours, whatever your proper amount is, and if we did that every single night for 10 years, we're going to get so much done, right? And we're just going to live such brighter lives. But why? Maybe it's the impatience of it, where, like, we're not going to see the results of that good sleep. Maybe that's it. Sorry, I just kind of been thinking of like all throughout this, where there is no maybe benefit that we see immediately, right? There's no payoff that comes from a good night of sleep. It's more so, yeah, like, you feel good and you're able to get certain things done. But there is a quote unquote payoff from staying up late, finishing the thing, because you can at least say, yep, I finished this. But that short-term win comes at the cost of long-term longevity. And so instead, we have to have that patience maybe that we have in others' pursuits, where do the thing that's painful in the short term for the long-term benefit, knowing we're not going to see the results for years, right? As opposed to convincing ourselves, yep, I just another hour, another hour, another hour. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I think to that point, no, I think it does. And I think you're actually getting at a really key concept in behavioral science, of this concept of, like, delaying gratification, and also the dopamine that we get from different things. So if that feedback loop of getting that dopamine hit is quicker, such as, I don't know, finishing off video editing, for example, Ruri, and then you probably feel good after the video is finished, and there's that dopamine surge, like, oh, I did it, like, nice, it's done. But then the reward loop for sleep is so much longer, and it's delaying that gratification of feeling good about yourself and feeling good about what you've achieved. And I think that's something that's actually really, really tricky to train ourselves to do, because especially as we live in a society and a world that is so fueled by excessive stimulation and excessive dopamine, and all these, like, social media and all of these sorts of gaming, and all of this stuff is just hyper stimulating our dopamine systems. So it's actually really tricky, because to convince yourself to go to sleep when you have this whole banquet of dopamine sources, whether that's getting more work done, or whether that's gaming or scrolling Instagram or YouTube, like, how are you going to convince yourself when there's so many tempting things on the table? And it's that which I think, you know, when we did our social media challenge back in the day, if to any listeners out there, we did, like, a collab video where we each deleted social media for 3 days. You can check out the video links down below. But I remember I slept so much better. I feel like I remember that. And I remember, like, before bed, I'd actually read and I actually do things that felt healthy and mindful rather than just scrolling. And that's something that I want to break out of. I want to break out of this, like, scrolling on social media habit, which I've fallen back into. But yeah, anyway, I've been rambling for a bit.
No,
I don't remember why I was even responding.
No, maybe it's that bit of, how do we bring, it's kind of like James Clear writes about in Atomic Habits, right? Where we want to essentially bring the reward closer, because the reward of a good night's sleep, it's like, you don't necessarily, it's kind of the idea of feeling well, where you only value feeling well whenever you're sick, because then it actually matters. Like, you only value feeling totally alert and awake whenever you're exhausted and not feeling all that well. So how can we then bring a reward, because, like, to that, and I don't know, and essentially, how do we bring a reward to the present moment whenever we go to sleep? And maybe it's an external reward that we give ourselves. Maybe it's something with accountability. Like, I don't know what that is, but trying something in that context, because at least in my experience, willpower is not enough. It hasn't been enough. It hasn't been working.
Yeah, so I actually know a Japanese YouTuber who does this like waking up early, sleeping early kind of like accountability buddy type of thing. So in basically their team, but they live really close to each other. They're like essentially 5 people, and they would track their sleep with Apple Watch, so everybody knows when people go to sleep and when they woke up, and they will meet every single morning in a Starbucks. And the person who slept the less, or like I don't know, less than their goal amount, would buy coffee for all the other 4 people, and they would do it like every single day. And they would even like kind of like it's becomes more like a competition. It's like more fun. Like who sleeps earlier, who gets the 8-hour sleep, and the process becomes more fun. And also the reward is immediate. Like you get your coffee, or you're paying coffee for all these 4 people. So it's like a game that they do, and I found it really interesting.
Rory,
but nobody wants to do it with me.
That's so interesting.
Isn't it?
No,
Because it's
Rory, I
like
think
this
that's
whole
perfect.
like reward, punishment, gamification, competition. It's bringing all these like exciting dopaminergic elements into sleeping, which is like
exactly.
the opposite usually. Oh gosh.
Well,
Yeah,
and
sorry,
if-
Matt. What
but
were you
what
going
if
to
we
say?
did? I was just gonna say, what if we did something like that, where, and I personally, I don't like the aspect of making it so that hey, it's the earliest person, because I think that the 3 of us even have different goals. Like we have different times that are ideal for us, right? In my head, like my ideal is from 8 to 4, I'm sleeping. Whereas for some it may be 10 to 6, or it may be 11 to 7, or like even earlier, maybe 7 to 3, whatever that is. But I do like the component of essentially, if you don't hit your targets, whatever you set them up to be, there is that sort of punishment. And that again, that's another idea, right, from Atomic Habits, where like bring the punishment or the downside of us not getting enough sleep we see in the long term, but how can we bring that to the present, right? How can we make it so that if we don't go to bed early, there's a payment and it's something that hurts. And maybe we do it where it's like, hey, the loser, like if it's multiple people, like if you don't hit your target, you have to send like a coffee to the different groups, or like we have to put it into a pot or something like that, where we then make it that we have that accountability, but it's not the competition aspect of, oh, who did it earlier. It really is that collaborative bit of, hey team, like it would be great if we don't have to add anything to this because everybody hit their target. So we'll play around with that. But I guess let's go to the concept of whenever you are in a rut, what are the ways that you've gotten out of it? So maybe it has to do with sleep, maybe it has to do with other things. What are those things that have worked for you in the past?
I couldn't. I've been in a rut for multiple months. I just couldn't. And I changed environments, and then a new rut come in, and so and I actually saw an online forum discussing about my burnout. They were saying that she couldn't get out of her like burnout. She couldn't get out of the rut. Like how bad a YouTuber she is or something. I just want to keep things real on my channel. And she's like constantly talking about her burnout because she wants to do all these stuff, but I couldn't. Like, should I lie about it? Should I behave that I'm productive or something? I just couldn't. I've been in a rut for multiple months. At some point, I started to not care about it. Like, yes, I'm in a rut, but so what? Yeah, I think I'm probably in my worst now. I'd never been like this disorganized.
Oh my gosh, Ruri.
Yeah, like I think at some point I started to stop caring about it, and I stopped trying to fix it. I just accepted it, but I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's good for my mental health, but it's not good for my schedule, nor financially, nor academically. I don't know what's the problem is.
So what does your rut
When you
right
bring
now look like exactly?
So I would probably like wake up around 11 a.m. and then I would do my exercise. I would work out, and I would take a shower, and then drink a coffee and tell myself that today's gonna be a great day. It's pretty nice. And I actually added meditation to my routine too, and I feel really mindful and everything. and then I suddenly go to my social media, and I start to text people, call people, talk for hours and hours and hours, and I would do like a bit of work, like about an hour or two, and then I don't know the rest. it's again 2 a.m. and I would go to bed, and then I would repeat all these things together. So from like 2 p.m. to 2 a.m., there is some sort of like a blank space that I don't know. There's something happening there. I actually don't know what's going on. I think I should be more mindful.
Oh gosh. So is that space mostly filled by social media and like texting people and calling people? Do you think that's what's in that space? I guess like what do you think is in that 12 hours?
I think that's the part that I remember. But there is like a 12-hour gap that I don't know what I do. I don't even consume like a lot of movies or series or animes or something. I don't know what I do.
Yeah. I think I can resonate on this basically, in that I often have had periods of my life, maybe in lockdown, where I'd be like, what did I do all day? Like, especially in lockdown, because I'd just be at home and I'd be like, what did I do all day? I didn't even leave the house. I just was at home. I ate some food. I breathed at home. and that's sort of, so I do know what you mean. I think something that helped me at that time, to coming back to your question, Matt, sorry, I didn't really answer it before, but coming back to your question, was actually doing like a time audit, or like basically writing down everything that I was doing and at what time I was doing it, and then assessing whether it was beneficial, like net positive or net negative on my life, or just neutral, and then just sort of figuring out how I could change that. But it is really tricky when you're in the rut. But yeah, is that something you've tried, Ruri?
I actually
tried doing like a time audit, like writing down.
Yeah. I think it's also like in Atomic Habits, it's recommended, and it's called like Habit Scorecard. And I did it in Turkey, and I understand the reason why I was in so rut, because I was talking to my family so much. It's kind of like became a way of procrastinate for me. Every time I don't want to do anything, I would go to my family and chat them and tell myself that since I'm going to move abroad, I cannot talk to my family anymore like this, so I should talk to them. And that became like a procrastination. And maybe I should do in this place, because this is a new system and I'm alone. And I was in quarantine for 10 days, so I was all the time at home. So maybe I should do this in my place so that I can figure out the patterns or whatever I'm doing, because I'm actually really curious what I'm doing. Yeah, I'll definitely try it.
Ruri, I actually I've been doing a lot of that. I've been doing a lot of that manually, where it's like manually inputting like minute by minute kind of what I'm doing in those things. But I actually just have a new thing I've been trying out, using a few different apps, and I know you use your iPad, where it's super useful, where like you can essentially just set up shortcuts you set up your categories, and then you can pretty much hit stop start. I'm working on this thing right here, and like, I have some for like, it's recording right now that we're doing a podcast recording, like, so it automatically puts it into there, and then you can kind of see the reports. To me, that has been, I just started having this more automated system, and it's been really helpful to just be mindful of, okay, if I'm gonna go and view YouTube, I have to hit start on watching YouTube. And so it's more of an honest look at how exactly I'm living my life in that way. So happy to go over that,
love
if that may help, because I know like it, that's kind of been the process so far. But yeah, I love that idea of an audit, right? Because it's, where does our time go? Like, essentially, where do our minutes go? That's where our life goes. And really understanding that, and kind of to this point about, how do we get out of our ruts, is like, it's having the understanding first and then acting on the information. So I think personally, that's where I've been struggling, where it's like, all right, I know the information. Like, I could tell you every single minute of the last 30 days, I could tell you what I was doing. But I haven't been acting on that knowledge, right? Acting on the knowledge of like, okay, so I stayed up until 12:30 watching YouTube video the other night. Well, great. So then what are you going to do about it? And honestly, I feel, and sometimes it gets into that cycle where I even feel worse, because I'm worse than an ignorant version of me, because I know the information and I'm still not doing anything about it, as opposed to like living in this ignorant bliss. But to kind of get to the like, I know every time I've gotten out of a rut, there's two things that happen. There's really just one thing. I just start going to bed early. That's it. And then everything else flows from there, right? It's that idea, like, that's a keystone habit, right? From what, it's like the Power of Habit, I think, by Charles Duhigg. He talks about that, where thinking about how that one thing makes everything else run, where we're more ahead on our days. We're more engage in our conversations. We're more creative. We're more all of these things. And it's just getting that one thing done. So I know that for me is what gets it out, but it's like, it's easy to know. It's much more difficult to you just got to make it happen.
Yeah, I think I'm the same as you, Matt. It's just actually going to sleep early.
So let's talk about how we can get to sleep better. Because I really think this has been plaguing me I look back at the newsletters I've written for the last 2 months. I look back at all my journal entries. Like, it's always around this, because it's crazy how much of our lives can be influenced by one important habit, right? Whatever. And I think for most of us, it's going to be sleep. Sure, for other people, maybe it's exercise or it's eating well, but those things are also made easier whenever we sleep well.
It's true. And I think that when I sleep well, I exercise more. Well, I eat better just because I feel more in control of my whole day. My whole day isn't like all delayed and feel like I'm catching up and feel tired and groggy. I feel alert. I feel like I have enough time and control over my schedule, and it's a completely different mindset. And I do wonder how I can more reliably be able to get out of a rut when I recognize that I'm in one. This is proper adulting, you know. It's like how to be an adult, how to manage yourself. Because actually, this is another thing I've been thinking about is often we spend a lot of time and energy thinking about our work and how to do good outputs on that. But in a way, like, we have to also, like, self-care is one of our jobs, and I'm sometimes really bad at it. And it's something I know is so important, but just going to sleep on time is just something that, I don't know, if I approach it like a job, like, this is my job to go to sleep, this is one of my tasks for today, then I wonder if I might be a little bit better at it. But I don't know. I'm rambling now. I have no solution because I'm still often in a rut. I was in a rut last week. So.
Maybe we're trying to do too much.
Maybe.
Like, maybe it's this, and I don't know if you all relate with this, but when I really do a self audit, it's that thought of it's maybe especially whenever falling into a rut, certain things like certain streaks end and certain habits fall off. But maybe like I'm trying to put all of them back together at once when it really should be deal with one and then the next and the next, because that's how they were built to begin with. And I think that it's that comparison game. Like, comparison can be dangerous with other people. Maybe it can even be more dangerous with ourselves, because we have a distorted viewpoint of how we used to be. And we forget maybe the pain that it costs or how long it really took to establish certain habits. And maybe we even embellish how we were in the past. And, or like, this is, I don't want to project to everyone else. Like, this is what I'm thinking about with myself, where whenever I fall off the wagon, right? Not with the drinking bit, but with everything else, like where my sleep is gone. And then like, maybe I like YouTube videos. It's been 30 days since I posted videos, like fell off there. And, you know, with certain things with like my jump roping, it's like all the whatever, right? Whenever things fall off, instead of trying to do all of them at once, because I remember a time where I was doing all of them, instead it's just saying, get the most important one finished first. Once that's established, then go to the next, because I'm not trying to win in the day-to-day. Like, from that context, I'm trying to win over the course of life, where it like be able to be doing more in 10 years, right? As opposed to like, yep, I crammed it all in, but at the expense of sleep or my health or anything like that, right, in the short term.
Yeah, I love that approach. Actually, I'm releasing a membership, and in that membership, I break down all of the habits that I want in my life, and that will benefit me in a good way. And I decided to like go step by step, build one habit and then move to another. So rather than going all in, I wanted to, for example, start with exercise, because when I exercise, I'm so tired and I want to sleep early. So like building them one by one, I decided to make it a whole journey. And from Monday, I'm actually going to do that. And I realize that YouTube really keeps me accountable most of the times, like 90% of the time. If it's for content, I would do anything. So I decided to tie with like content and my habits so that I would actually do it, and we'll see how it works. Yeah,
I really like this approach that both of you talk about, and Ruri, in your membership, about this building like one habit at a time. Because I guess if you can just focus in on changing one habit each day, and maybe just for a few days, just making sure you kind of sink in that new habit, then that's much more likely to succeed. Because if you just have this huge gargantuan list of habits that you want to do, like that just seems overwhelming.
Yeah, exactly.
And just seems like too much to implement in one go, or to implement sustainably as well. So maybe I'll try doing that with my habits. I've written out like a morning routine plan for myself, which includes all the things I want to work on, but I only get through about half of it at the moment. So maybe I'll take a leaf out of both of your books and work on one at a time, just extending it by one each week until hopefully I've got the whole thing together.
And one
And I'm out of the
funny
rut.
thing that I realized when setting this membership is that I was more realistic when I think about the members. So since members gonna do the challenge, I was trying to think more realistically. So for myself, I set a perfect morning routine which includes like 10 habits that I want to do. But since I need to like think for my membership, I break it down and I saw that it's impossible. So I like break down every single habit, and I build kind of like a system where I can combine these habits throughout this like 100 days or whatever. But when it comes to myself, I'll never ever be realistic. But when it's for my membership and when it's for YouTube, I would break down everything, and I can easily see that it's impossible. I think the problem that we have is that the expectation towards ourselves is super high. We just expect too many things from ourselves. But when we like take a step, when we take one step back and
Yeah, when you take
When
a
we
step
take
back.
a step back.
yeah, exactly, and try to see things realistically, I actually can see the problem easily. That's one of the things that I realized. So I decided to consider my life maybe more like a business or maybe work, because I'm better at it. As you said, Izzy, when it's my self-care, when it's my mental health, I'm super bad at it. But when it's a job or when it's a work, when it's a YouTube content, I'm much better. So I decided to be more realistic about myself and be honest to myself. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
I
like
love
that
that.
idea of the realistic, and maybe even I'll take a shot at like even rephrasing in the sense of we can do all these things if they were in their own silos, which I get caught in this trap all the time. It's like, well, yes, obviously I can do all the 10 things if that was the only one. And it's like David Goggins would talk about this like different podcasts, and then even in his book where it's like, yeah, you can do anything whenever you're sitting on the couch drinking a beer, right? Where you're watching the people on TV. It's like, yeah, like I could do that. I could do this or that whenever we're in that comfortable situation. But we have to not imagine ourselves at the end whenever we're going to be super successful. We have to imagine ourselves like actually going through the process, and we have to take all of the other things into consideration. Because I think that we all realize that when we say yes to one thing, we say no to everything else. And so any time that we spend on one activity is naturally time that is not spent on another one. And especially whenever we're building up our different habits and our different routines, it takes so much willpower, right? I mean, that's just the nature of it. And so whenever we're trying to put so much willpower into so many of the things, well, then none of them end up getting done, or maybe even like the wrong ones get done that don't actually bring us like further along. And it's being able to look at it like from, as you were talking about, Ruri, where like you put everything together and you say, okay, so yes, I added all these things. Like, yes, reading an hour a day would be good for me. Exercising would be good for me. Sleeping the full night would be good for me. Meditating would be good for me. Eating completely healthy would be good for me. Studying would be good for me. Talking to friends would be good for me. But whenever we start putting them all together and we actually start putting them in our calendar, well, then we start seeing like, okay, but do I want to excel at certain ones? Do I just want to be average at each of these? And whenever we really look at that, like that to me gives that more honest look. That more honest look of, okay, this is actually, can we actually do all of them at once? Maybe the answer is no. And especially at the very start, it's going to be no for all of them.
That echoes quite a lot about what you were saying, Ruri, about how our expectations for ourselves are so excessive or so unrealistic, because we're like, yeah, of course I can do that. Like, of course I can do that. But then if you imagine somebody else doing that, it's like, no, take it easy. Like, don't worry. Like, take it step by step. And and if only we could apply that a little bit more to ourselves, apply a bit more of that taking it easy and taking it step by step, looking at the long game rather than just being like, oh, of course I can smash through it, of course I can do it. It's almost like even learning a physical skill, often I assume, oh, of course I can do it. Like, for example, I tried to learn handstands in the lockdowns, or like splits or different like yoga poses. And I'd be like, oh yeah, of course I can do it. I can do it in 30 days. Like I watched a YouTube video where they're like, I got my handstand in 30 days. And obviously it's kind of fake because it's really hard to actually genuinely like get splits or handstands or any of these like advanced physical poses or moves in 30 days. But I'm like, yeah, of course I can do it. No worries. And then it took me like a year or something like that to be able to. So it's just that whole thing of taking a step back. Yeah. I love that.
And maybe even asking ourselves why we feel we want to do it so quickly, right? That question of what's the rush?
Yeah.
Because with different things like a handstand, like why do we need to do it in 30 days? Like, and it's that fine balance between having some sort of deadline that pushes us to actually do the work versus being able to maybe change that along the way, where you kind of prioritize the things of, yeah, you could do it in 30 days because you could quit everything else and just focus completely on every day, all day long, all you do are handstands, right? Like,
yeah.
We could do that, but it's asking with each of the things, like at what cost, right? At what cost are we going to be able to do whatever we set out to do?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of going in circles. So, I mean, this has been super useful. I still feel pretty very much in a rut, but it's like, hey, this is the part where we all understand the concepts. It just is like, are we going to execute on the things we need to execute on?
Yeah, so I guess maybe from there we've got the theory down. We've had the discussion. So what are we going to do next to get out of our respective ruts or the next time we get into a rut? So I guess I'll kick it off. And I think this is just a suggestion, but how about if any of us feel like we're in a rut, we just send a message to the group and be like, I'm in a rut, give me accountability. And then we're like, you go to sleep. You need to sleep. And just encourage each other to sleep. Because it seems like the keystone here is sleep. For all three of us, we're really bad at sleeping.
Yeah, we are.
Who would have thought? Because sleeping is literally one of the only things that takes no skill. Like a baby, as soon as it is out of the womb, it can sleep. But for some reason, we cannot.
Can't.
So maybe like some kind of accountability thing, being like, yeah, I need to go to sleep, guys. Tell me to go to sleep. And then just be like, go to sleep. You know, it's funny. It sounds funny. It sounds really dumb, but I feel like it actually might help me.
Yeah.
I feel like my brain is like dumb enough to the point where even just someone like texting me, you go to sleep, I'm more likely to go to sleep.
Yeah, I think so too.
Than if I'm just on my own scrolling Instagram, even though it's such like a simple thing. So I'm gonna try that.
Actually.
That's my suggestion. If you guys don't mind, I'm gonna ask you guys to tell me to sleep.
Wait, what if we do it where we set our own so kind of on this, we set our own targets, and then other people, like the group, is responsible for texting us, like maybe not every day, but at random times, like, hey, by the way, you know, Ruri, you set your time, and then whatever time that is here, it's like, yo, Ruri, by the way, you should be going to sleep, or you should be getting ready for bed now, right? Yeah. Same thing with Is, where like we can do it also whenever we need help, but it's also kind of those random triggers of, okay, like I really should, right? Because like this is the commitment we made to ourselves beforehand.
Yeah. Actually, it would work for me probably because I added Matt on Apple Watch Fitness, and whenever Matt finishes a workout, I get a notification. And I actually don't remember how many times I worked out after seeing Matt works out, because, Matt works out, so maybe I should work out too. So it's like a friendly reminder. Even though I tried so many apps for exercising, reminding me to work out, I never listened to him. Like, who are you? I'm not going to listen to you or something. But when Matt genuinely works out, and when I can see it from my notification, I just go and work out, and that's not really hard, or it doesn't push me. It's just like a more friendly vibes, you know, rather than like a random app telling me to work out right now.
Yeah, and I guess there's that personal connection there as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess with the app just telling you to work out, it doesn't mean anything. But if it's like a friend or family member being like, hey, I'm working out.
Yeah.
This is great. Like, it'd be cool if you join me if you want. Like, no pressure. But then it connects more emotionally to us, and it's more motivating in some way. So
Wait,
yeah.
I'm gonna
I
add
wish
to
I had
this
an Apple
idea.
Watch. I'm so jealous of you guys.
Izzy,
I've got
Izzy,
a
just
Fitbit.
you gotta get on the Apple Watch game because
Yeah, you
it's just so
should.
much fun.
I
Like
need-
I get hyped whenever I see Ruri working out. Ruri, you had some at 11 a.m. today. You had 3 workouts come
Yeah,
through,
yeah,
and
I
I was
did.
just getting hyped. Yeah. See, Izzy,
my
we need
gosh.
you on there.
The
But on this
reason.
bit,
Oh,
because
sorry.
the biggest thing.
Go ahead,
go
go
ahead. No, go ahead.
The
Ruri.
reason why I worked out at 11 a.m. was because I woke up and then I saw Matt's workouts like notifications coming in. I was like, oh, maybe I should work out too, and I worked out, and then it affected Matt. So it's like a positive loop that we have,
Yeah.
and it's so
Oh my
nice.
god. I need to get in
Well,
on
and
this.
on
But
this-
I need an Apple Watch.
You need.
Wait, Izzy, yeah.
This is
Yeah,
so sad.
you got to get on that game. You got to get on the game because you would have so much fun with it too. Where we would have like just seeing friends do it is so encouraging.
Yeah.
And maybe
Mm.
it's this bit of like it's the transparency. So what if in addition to I'm serious about us doing these things. I know you guys are too. So like we'll make these sorts of things happen. But what if we even just had even like in a page in our shared Notion space where we have like that's where we log our sleep times. Where I've tried logging my sleep time by myself, and it's like after a while I'm like, yeah, but nobody's watching.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It is what it
Exactly.
is. I kind of
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
yep, that was a 2 a.m. night.
Yeah,
Okay.
yay.
Right. Moving on. Whereas, like, I think I would feel shame, like not because you guys would shame me, but because it's well, like, if we have it all together, where I would be like, I do not want to input. Right, I don't want to input a 1 a.m. night.
Yeah.
Because that to me would just be like the team is relying on me to pull my own weight with this sort of thing. And so if we just had something where we put our target times, and then it's not a competition with each other, it's truly just that bit of like, wow, I see that Izzy and Ruri have you both have like a 4 or 5 night like sleep streak. Let's get on that, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's
Yeah.
really continue this process.
Exactly. I think
I
it's
guess that like
the
positive
oh, sorry.
encouragement. Yeah, no, sorry, go ahead. I think there's a bit of lag. You go for it.
yeah. So I think I kind of feel like responsible to you guys, and it encourages me. It's not like pushes me, but it's just like a friendly reminder. And also one thing that I tried on Apple Watch is that you can compete with your friends. And like you get like the points and you can compete for a week, like who worked out more and stuff. But I didn't like that much because that was a competition and it was stressing me out. But rather than not doing a competition and just getting a notification of Matt finished his workout worked for me much like better than the competition. So for me, I think I just need a friendly reminder and encouragement. And since I feel responsible towards you guys, I do think that it would work actually.
And I guess like what I love about this as well is it's almost coming back to our roots. It's this accountability and supporting
Yeah.
each other and cheering each other on to our best selves, like to be our best selves, either on YouTube accountability or sleeping or social media quitting or running or any of this stuff. So I love it. I'm so here for the accountability. And to any listeners out there, honestly, accountability buddies and finding people who you can just talk to about what you're trying to achieve in your life and just cheer each other on is so helpful.
And before we wrap up, just a quick note on that one is like, I think competition's overrated. Where yes, it does push us, but I think that there doesn't need to be like the winner loser here, right? I think really having that win-win mentality.
Yeah.
That I remember, like I actually was taught from our collaboration video, right? I remember going out there thinking, I just want to win. Where it's like the win feels so like it doesn't matter, right? Compared to like being with people. Like, and Ruri, you talked about Apple Watch competitions. I used to be ruthless with friends, like on that one, because we would just talk a bunch of crap and try to do that. But now, like whenever we do competitions, I accidentally started one with one of my buddies in my sleep, and it was genuinely the both of us encouraging each other, like, hey, let's get all the points we can today. Let's make it happen, right? Because it feels so much better whenever you really are in it together, and like there's nothing that like when there's nothing that's taken away from us whenever all of us are like really raising each other up.
Yeah.
So yeah, competition's overrated. Let's make this collaboration happen, and man, this is gonna be good. I feel a lot better.
Yeah, I feel so optimistic
Let's
about
do it.
this. I'm so ready. Love you guys. I love you
Also,
guys
I'm going to
so
give
much.
you both random calls. I love you guys.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you both
Gosh.
random calls just to check in on how your
Oh,
ruts are going, just to
oh.
let you know. So.
Oh,
Love
that,
this.
love that, love that.
Who would have thought Ruri would say
Right?
love that? You
Right?
know, this is
Yeah.
people can change. This is growth.
Now,
This is personal growth.
really random note. I love sudden calls. I've been calling my friends suddenly. I've been getting calls suddenly. I'm like so excited. I just love them.
This is transformation. This
It
is
is.
evolution in action. I love it.
All right, well, listeners, thanks for being with us on this one. Hopefully you got something fun out of this. Is there anything that you're struggling with? You know, whenever you're in a rut, what usually causes it? What are the keystone habits, right, that really, whenever you neglect them, that it brings you into a worse headspace? And then how do you get out of those ruts? We'd love to hear any of those ideas and things like that. And then, yes, also find some accountability buddies and raise each other up. So that's it for this time. We love you.
Bye.
Thanks for being with us. Bye for now.
Bye.
Okay, that's
Wow.
the episode.
Lit. That was so good.